The jealous brothers of Joseph. A long time ago, in a distant land, there lived a large family. Jacob, the father, had 12 sons, but Joseph was his favorite. He loved Joseph more than his other sons because Joseph was born when Jacob was already old. To show his special love, Jacob gave Joseph a tunic of many colors, a beautiful and unique garment that shone like a rainbow in the eyes of his brothers. Joseph's brothers were not happy about this. They were jealous because they saw that their father paid more attention to Joseph. Their envy grew even more when Joseph began to share his dreams, which seemed strange but also very important. One day, Joseph said to his brothers, "I had a dream. I dreamed that we were binding sheaves in the field, and my sheaf stood upright while your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to mine." The brothers were furious. "Do you think you will reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" they said, even more jealous. They could barely hide their anger and whispered among themselves, planning how to deal with the young dreamer. But Joseph had another dream and shared it again. "I dreamed that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." Even his father, Jacob, rebuked him. "What kind of dream is this? Will your mother, your brothers, and I actually bow down to you?" Despite this, Jacob kept the matter in his heart, pondering what it might mean. But Joseph's brothers could not hide their envy. Every time they looked at the colorful tunic or heard Joseph's stories, their hearts filled with anger. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were tending the flocks. Joseph set out excitedly, unaware of what awaited him. When his brothers saw him from afar, they plotted against him. One of them said, "Here comes the dreamer. Let's kill him and throw his body into a cistern. We'll say a wild animal devoured him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." But not all of them agreed with the cruel plan. Reuben, the eldest brother, tried to save him. "Don't kill him. Just throw him into the cistern." He planned to rescue Joseph later and return him to their father. When Joseph arrived, his brothers surrounded him. They stripped him of his beautiful, colorful tunic and threw him into an empty, dark, and cold cistern. Joseph was frightened, unable to understand why his brothers were being so cruel. As they ate, they saw a caravan of merchants heading to Egypt. These men were traveling with camels loaded with spices, fabrics, and other goods. Judah suggested, "Instead of killing him, let's sell him as a slave. That way, we won't be guilty of his death, and we'll gain something." The brothers agreed. They pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 pieces of silver. Joseph was taken away by the merchants, his eyes filled with tears as he looked back at his family disappearing in the distance. To cover up what they had done, the brothers took Joseph's tunic, dipped it in goat's blood, and brought it to their father. With a tone of deceit, they said, "We found this. See if it is your son's tunic." Jacob recognized the garment immediately. He cried out in pain and wept bitterly, believing that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. Jacob's heart was broken, and he could not be comforted for a long time. Meanwhile, Joseph was taken to Egypt. He was scared and confused, but even in the midst of adversity, God was with him. Joseph did not yet know, but God had great plans to transform his life and use him for something far greater than he could imagine. This story teaches us that jealousy can lead to great mistakes, but also that God can turn difficult situations into something wonderful. We should never let envy rule our hearts and always trust that God is in control of everything.